To me, the first step of automation is the stuff that's in the short term, in the near future, like combine automation. And there'll be more automation around our planting, and other things are coming long before we even think about dropping off a tractor in a field and having it plant 160 with nobody there.
Ladies and gentlemen, farmers, ranchers, and distinguished guests, thank you for listening to the Farm4Profit Podcast, where we discuss the latest ideas, methods, trends, and techniques available to help your farm achieve higher levels of farm profitability. The Farm4Profit Podcast is co-hosted by Tanner Winterhoff, the Iowa Bankerman, and David Whitaker, the Iowa Land Guy, where in tandem they will share their ideas and advice from industry experts. Thank you again for listening to the Farm4Profit Podcast. Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long. And now, here's Tanner and David.
Welcome back to the Farm4Profit Podcast. This is Tanner here.
And this is David.
Thank you again for joining us, and we appreciate all the topic suggestions that you've been giving us. If you have any more ideas, it's farm4profitllc@gmail.com, or you can find us on any social media platform at Farm4ProfitLLC. Remember, that is the number 4. Dave, how things going with you?
Well, very good, very good. We're in a tight economy. We're after coronavirus, of course, and we have Kyle McMahon on the phone. And Kyle McMahon has been a friend of mine for quite a while, and he's the founder of Tractor Zoom and Iron Comps, and he leads the company as the CEO. And I remember him before he was at this company and coming to me with Tractor Zoom and great conversations. So I'm excited to have Kyle on the phone with us.
Yeah, it's been fun to know Kyle for as long as I have, as he's worked through building his company. He's a third-generation entrepreneur, grew up with hard work and curiosity ingrained in his demeanor. Kyle and his Tractor Zoom team had actually won the Papa John Entrepreneur Venture Competition in 2018. So a really fun company to bring to our What's Working in Ag segment here. Kyle, why don't you say hi to the listeners?
Hey, thanks for having us. Really appreciate you guys highlighting Tractor Zoom and what we're up to. We're just about ready to roll into some big equipment auctions pre-harvest, so it's an exciting time.
Okay, so now not everybody knows you as well as Dave and I do. What is Tractor Zoom, and then what is Iron Comps?
Yeah, certainly. So Tractor Zoom is an online search engine for farm equipment auctions. So we have partnered with over 420 auction companies like David Whitaker's, where we effectively advertise their auctions to farmers and make it really easy for farmers to find their equipment. People can just go to tractorzoom.com and start searching for what you're looking for. If you're looking for something in particular, like a Case IH Magnum tractor or a John Deere S680 combine, whatever you're looking for, you can literally go to tractorzoom.com or through our mobile apps and search all the equipment across the country with a couple easy searches. And here recently, we're getting a lot of demand of, okay, Tractor Zoom is seeing a lot of inventory. Now, what are the prices doing? So we rolled out a new product called Iron Comps here the last 6 months that's primarily been used for banks and dealers, really attacking the market from a professional atmosphere to where from an Iron Comps perspective, some of the dealers that listeners might know would be like Van Wall or RDO Equipment, Ziegler Caterpillar, 21st Century Equipment, John Deere. And then maybe some of the banks that people would know would be Northwest Banks and Farm Credit Associations that really use the data to help make real-time price transparency decisions. And we're happy to announce we're now bringing that same professional product to the growers to help them make really great business decisions when they're buying, selling, or financing equipment.
And anytime we try and forecast as an auctioneer or banker or the farm operator, we're trying to forecast what this should bring, what we should pay, what's too much. Me as an auctioneer, I can tell you that Iron Comps, when I go out there, Tanner, I'm expected to know every piece of equipment from a John Deere B to a Magnum 255 to a combine of any sort, shape, size, class 3, class whatever. Okay, so with that, there's a lot to know, and I don't know every model, make, size, and what it's going to bring in your local area. However, that's what they're trying to do, is catalog that and give us a tool to be able to look that up, to be that trusted advisor, that trusted resource. So some cool things about Tractor Zoom that I liked from the start was that nowadays, Tanner, especially since Amazon came around, everybody searches for an item. So
specifically.
It's per item search. They don't say, at auctions, this is what we used to do. We say, hey, the Johnsons are having an auction. All right, Tanner, let's go. What are they selling? I don't have a clue, but I bet they got donuts and I bet they got coffee there.
Got to go find out.
We would go to this sale, and because it was an event. We used to sell the event as the auctioneer, and now we sell the item. What Kyle did with Tractor Zoom is a way to search for that item. I don't want to waste my entire day. I need a manure spreader, $295 New Holland manure spreader. Boom. He'd tell me who's got it, where's it at, when is it there. And that's the part that I like the most about it, is that he was relating the way that people are starting to search for it, and it's in my hand.
Okay, so Kyle, you've got all this data at your fingertips. Why don't you give us a pretty good look at what machinery and equipment are doing right now? What are you seeing values doing?
Yeah, so it's a really unique market that we're seeing. We've actually been analyzing a lot of data here coming up to the pre-harvest machinery. And if you think back to 2019 had its own challenges with weather, trade wars, MFP payment coming out. So it was a really volatile equipment market. Prices were going up and down in 2019. And then all of a sudden, turning the corner to 2020, farmers' yields were bigger than expected. MFP payments came in. So people were feeling pretty good, pretty optimistic going into 2020. Machinery prices were about 15% higher across the board at the turn of the year of 19 to 20. And then all of a sudden the coronavirus hit. And we've seen something really interesting. So as the manufacturers have slowed down production of new equipment, that's put a lot of very little late model, low houred machines on the market.
Okay.
And we're seeing a steady increase of higher houred tractors and combines coming to market. And here in the last 60 days, it has been a flip flop of inventory in the market. A couple of really big dealer auctions have happened and some really big retirement sales. What we've seen is a flip flop in the usage. So some might see some really big machinery prices out there. In some cases, they look almost 80 to 100% larger prices than what they were selling a year ago this time. But the really unique factor in the auction market, we're seeing a lot of really low houred machines, whether they're combines or tractors, coming to market, which is a product segment and a type of machine that the market hasn't seen. So there's been some really active bidding on that type of equipment. However, it's also opened up supply to the lower houred late model machines where they're holding their value, and it's taken interest away from the higher houred machines. So, you might see some market volatility in the higher houred machines now that we're seeing low houred late model stuff come to market.
Very interesting, because that's something that our co-host on our Farm for Fun shows has mentioned, that a lot of farmers have been running equipment a lot longer than they had historically, and now it's good to know that might become a volatile marketplace if they do to try to liquidate, say, trade, possibly get those put in there too. But we're Farm for Profit, Kyle. How could iron comps help our listener, the farmer, potentially either make more money or save it or impact their bottom line?
Yeah, that's the exact thing that we're trying to bring to market with iron comps, by bringing this tool to the grower themselves to where they can really get real-time price transparency in the market and delivering them a tool to be able to search transactions across the industry and across the United States, so they know exactly what machines you're selling for, and really give people the option and opportunity to filter those results. So, for example, if you were to log on to Iron Comps and go look at a John Deere S680, you'll see 150 different auction results. But then maybe the one you're appraising or you're trying to figure out what the market's doing has 750 separator hours. Well, you can start to narrow all of those filters, all those comparable sales and auction results down to that hour range to really hone in on the type of comparable sale that you need to value that machine, and really look at results in the last few months that are the most important, that recognize current market volatility. So it's really giving the farmer the same sophisticated, amazing tool that dealers and banks are using today, and allowing them to make great price decisions.
The internet has made an equal playing field for sure for farmers across the board. Kyle, thanks for telling us about Tractor Zoom and Iron Comps. I can vouch for on the auctioneer side that it is very helpful, and all you farmers should be watching Tractor Zoom to find your stuff and using Iron Comps to get values, because I, as the auctioneer and forefront, I try to get the prices through Iron Comps as well. Go ahead, Tanner.
Well, Kyle, just before we sign off here and move on to our conversation with Chad Colby, can you tell our listener how they can get a hold of either you or the company, so that way if they want to use Iron Comps, they can do that?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of auctions coming up. So if you're looking for equipment to purchase, go to tractorzoom.com or go to the app stores and download our app. And if you're trying to figure out what you should pay, or more importantly, what price you should sell an item for, go to aeronautical.com, and there will be a 7-day free trial for you to log into the software, Iron Comps, and play around with it to make sure it's a tool that will help you make better buying, selling, financing, and insuring decisions.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Kyle, for your time. And we look forward to chatting more. We'll probably have to get you back on here for another equipment summary. But until then, have yourself a good day.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate having me on.
Well, that was our What's Working in Ag segment featuring Iron Comps and Tractor Zoom. And we're going to stick here, Dave, pretty close to the same topic of the advancements in technology, the latest in technology, and what's new. And what better person for us to talk to than Chad Colby. Chad has been a guest on our podcast before. Chad's the founder and principal of Colby Ag Tech, where he works with progressive farmers, leading companies, and government agencies to provide a deeper understanding of new technologies. He's also got a segment on Agribusiness Today. He features and talks about this kind of stuff all the time. He resides out there in Goldfield, Illinois, but he's on the road today, so we had a chance to pick his brain a little bit. You could find him anywhere at the Chad Colby or through his website, which is www.colbyagtech.com. Thank you again, Chad, for joining us to talk about ag technology and what is new.
Hey, fellas, it's always good to catch up with you guys. I was involved with the event that just concluded online, the virtual Farm Progress Show, and was out in Iowa. Had a chance to take a look at some of the damage from the derecho, and my goodness, fellas, that almost takes your breath away just driving around in that Ames, Iowa area and out on Route 30. And man, I certainly feel for a lot of producers in that area. They're going to have a real challenging fall, regardless of how much technology they have.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to just look at it and see the corn down, and then we see guys with 40-foot rollers rolling it down, and it just seems like a crying shame sometimes. But hopefully maybe at the Farm Progress Show you saw some new technology that can help guys pick corn up when it's 2 inches off the ground.
You know, here's the deal. I talked to some folks actually from Gearinghoff, and we did some segments for This Week in Agribusiness on getting your platforms ready for harvest, and we were talking off camera about down corn, and you know, the comment was made, man, you remember when I was a kid and we didn't even have poly snoots on our corn head. Remember those days we had steel? And you know, one fella said, yeah, my dad used to spray Pam grease from Mom's kitchen on the snoots to help the down corn slide in the combine. But you know, certainly there's a lot of challenges with these down crops, and I think the biggest thing that gets overlooked is, you know, producers, you know, and you're going to be listening to this podcast, you got to have an extra ounce of patience. Because it's very demanding. It's not push a button and sit back and watch. It's a real struggle. We had some pockets even of down corn last year. Thank goodness it was only 40 or 50 acres, but we had to harvest it one way, and it took 4 times longer to harvest the same field. And I think you're going to see that. I know at the Farm Progress Show site, they were pretty fortunate. They did have some wind damage there, but it wasn't enough to hinder the harvest demonstrations. And if you haven't seen that on the virtual experience, check it out. And you know, but for a lot of producers, they weren't as blessed. And you know, yes, you can have all the technology in the world, but man, when that corn's laying super flat, a lot of times there's not much you're going to do about it. And I certainly feel for those producers in Iowa, throughout the Midwest, that got huge amounts of damage from that derecho here in the last month.
So, Chad, since we're right here in Huxley, Iowa, we're not far from Farm Progress. And so we normally get over there. This year it's virtual, but normally you see everything at Farm Progress and the latest technologies from grain carts, combines, track machines, tablets, iPhones, drones, everything. What's the latest advancements that you're seeing out there when you were over there? It wasn't to the public this year because of COVID. Anything we're missing?
I think the neat part is we really focused on the outside demonstrations, and certainly the things you wanted to see were there. John Deere's new X9 series of combines were there. You got to walk around them, and it's just really nice. And I know a lot of companies, this isn't a John Deere thing, are taking a new approach to equipment launches. And the X9 is certainly that new approach, if you would, and that is talking to producers and working with producers several years before you bring something out to make sure that, manufacturers are listening a little bit better. And you just see a lot of refinements in the combine. You see a lot of little refinements, even in the header equipment, little things. The new corn head has integrated stalk stompers. I mean, can I get a hallelujah?
Yeah.
I mean, who wants to go spend $90,000 for a new corn head or $130,000 and then have to go put some aftermarket accessories on their $90,000 corn head that, okay, John Deere, some engineers or, office full of them said, hey, we can fix that problem. And they did it. And I think that's the thing I like to see. If you read and watch social media, it's pretty easy to go pick on the X9 and what it does. But, for a real select group of performers, as far as grower size go across the country, that really fills a void because it is more productive, and they're working on getting those harvested costs per acre down. And if you got enough acres and you got enough facilities to handle the bushels, then that machine will work for you. It's not going to work for everybody. Okay. And, that was neat. There was some new tillage there as well. Case IH had their high-speed disc tool there. I know Landau had a new high-speed disc there as well. We got to see those work in the field. And actually, I think Great Plains even had a new chisel. That was a few weeks ago, trying to remember all the things that we taped. But, it was good. I think the biggest takeaway for me personally was just getting a chance to talk to some of the industry. COVID is really just, I don't want to say silence us all, but, put us on that demand of a Zoom meeting is the only way you get to visit with somebody.
Right.
And, even at a very, very, very small scale, it was really nice to see some machinery. And I know a couple of the reps commented to me it was the first time that they had been out of their home office really since March. And, for a lot of these guys, the one guy said that's the longest stretch in 25 years.
Right.
And think about that, so COVID's put a challenge on the industry, but, it's interesting now that the virtual Farm Progress show has passed us. You can go online and watch all those videos. I just think it brings a new light to the importance, and you two fellas do a great job with this. Tip of the cap to you guys. You guys have a great conference every year. You guys do a lot of great things, but it's really about sharing that information. And I think that's the challenge with technology, right? Is you got to find a way to share technology in a way that people understand. And certainly in these times, we're more dependent on the little things. I keep hearing people talking about speed of internet, right? We're realizing that's an issue, but it always has been if you've lived in rural America, right?
Yeah,
so
very much so.
So you were out there doing a bunch of the filming for this, and I'm assuming you used some new technologies to get a lot of creative views, a lot of creative angles. If our listener hasn't signed on to look at that virtual event yet, what types of views or things are they going to be able to see, and how are they going to be able to see that?
It's funny you mentioned that. In one evening we went out for dinner when I was out, we talked about how we believe that the virtual experience of the Farm Progress Show is probably going to continue in the future to some degree. Because, if this was 10 or even 15 years ago, there's no way you were able to take a piece of equipment going through the field and mount the cameras on it, follow it with a drone, and do all those things to provide that inside look at what's actually happened, especially with that new piece of equipment that people are really dying to see. And I think that's what Farm Progress and, the folks at This Week in Agribusiness and 22 Creative Group and the guys that are in agriculture and know how to film ag machinery, they did just a wonderful job of showing that. I know most equipment had 3 or 4 GoPros on it. We had 2 stationary cameras on the ground. I was flying it with a Flying Ag DJI Mavic 2, which that's the one with the Hasselblad sensor. And literally I had 10 batteries in my truck, and I flew all day. When I say all day, I landed for batteries and went airborne.
Wow.
All day long was flying. And, we could really never do that in an effective way if you rewind the clock, guys, maybe even just as short as 10 years ago. So, I think that's a good thing. And especially this fall, guys, there's going to be a lot of producers when they're sitting in that combine or, in the grain truck in line at the elevator, they're going to tune in and look at that equipment. It's a 3-minute piece on this new piece of tillage. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's a great use of that smart technology that we all have access to, whether that's your smartphone or your tablet. And I think that's wonderful.
So you kind of hit on the integrated stock stompers on the new corn heads. Is there anything else out there that caught your eye that might, help the farmer's pocketbook out, geared towards a little bit more profitability or savings? Did anything else out like there catch your eye?
There was a lot of little things on equipment. The thing I probably missed the most, behind the people and the connections you make at Farm Progress was I kind of leaned to those varied industry tents, because those are the guys that, scrounge up enough money for a 10 by 10 booth or a new startup, and they've got all the kind of the new widgets, if you would. And of course, on this virtual program like this, we didn't have that luxury, so we didn't have that. The virtual side is really based on the hard equipment, out in the field. So that's kind of a bummer, because I kind of miss some of those new ideas that you see. Well, you guys know it. You walk through that varied industry tent, and you're like, whoa, what was that again? Did you see that? And whether it's it could be new lighting packages, it could be new fire extinguishers, all kinds of crazy things, planter attachments. My goodness, there's just a lot of connectivity in our equipment anymore. And you're starting to see some of that come out in press releases right now. I think I saw that. Didn't John Deere just recently announce they've got an app now for your tractor, your small tractor, where it will send the data from the tractor to the John Deere Operator Center. And this is small compact tractors. So I think connectivity as a whole is really starting to ramp up. I think it starts to really shed the light. And I know Secretary Perdue it's been a focus of the administration it brings that challenge of high-speed internet. And I even know at the Farm Progress Show, I was joking. My phone worked great the whole time because
nobody else was there.
Because there was nobody there. So my phone worked great. But, I think there's a lot of places across the country, and certainly I know some of your listeners here in Iowa have some challenging places for high-speed internet. And even where I live in Goodfield, Illinois, which is right on Interstate 74, right between Peoria and Bloomington, our internet is, I don't want to say garbage, but it's not very good.
Yeah,
a lot of times
it takes a lot, especially on the upload side, the throughput, not just the download. Most people now are sending uploads. So the users of the internet that are I call it users or creators. Users just download stuff, watch YouTube, watch etc. Creators need a little bit more bandwidth because we're actually using the computer, not a tablet, to create stuff and send it out to the net. But hey, with that, Chad, question. Every year that I've been there, I've been seeing that autonomous stuff is coming and coming and coming. I think there was an autonomous grain cart out there, maybe Smart Ag, some others. Any comments on that? LibreCart integration or C.Dot run?
Yeah, absolutely. DOT was there also, which is that, if you guys haven't seen that, that's that, I want to say autonomous tractor, but it's got attachments for it. They had a Ag Leader spreader box on it. That was on site. We got to play with that. I actually got to go see that at a press event out in Arizona here. It was in the middle of winter there and right before COVID started, I guess. And it's a wonderful concept. And it's certainly going to have its application. I talk to people a lot about autonomy, and I think autonomy is kind of I don't want to say a dual-edged sword, but a little bit, because you go buy a new combine from your favorite manufacturer today, and you can click on the automation, and you can purchase that automation. And I tell the story because it's pretty humbling. In January, I was with a group of actually cotton growers, but big growers, and they were all from basically the southwest part of the country. And most all of them had conventional combines as well. And there's a room about 500 people. And I said, how many people bought a new combine in the last 2 years? And about a third of the room raised their hand, which I would say is pretty typical. And I said, how many of you, keep your hands up, bought automation for your combine? Do you guys know how many people in a room of 500 where a third raised their hand, also continue to keep their hand up, that they bought automation for your combine? How much do you think?
Well, would it be half the group that had their hand up to begin with?
No, there was like 3 people.
Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah, probably not many.
And the reason why is that, guys, if you're sitting with your equipment dealer and you're getting ready to spec out your new combine because it's your time to buy a new combine, and maybe you get a new one. At my dad, we got new combines every 6 years. I mean, our combines were tired, okay? But when you're sitting across from your salesman and he says, hey, Chad, I would like to show you this combine automation, and here's how it works, and it's a camera system, and it'll automatically adjust the throughput of your combine, and yada, yada, yada. What's the first thing I'm going to ask? I'm going to ask, what's it cost?
What's it
cost?
When the dealer
says, it's $22,809. What's the first thing I'm going to say, fellas?
Well, I can get rid of that, and we can save a little
Yeah,
money.
Yeah, I don't need that. Now, here's the deal. I've got producers, good friends of mine, that have bucked the trend, if you would, and put it on a combine, and they love it. It does things that you can't imagine. So to me, the first step of automation is the stuff that's in the short term, in the near future, like combine automation. And there'll be more automation around our planting, and other things are coming long before, heaven forbid I say this, but long before we even think about dropping off a tractor in a field and having a plant 160 with nobody there.
Right.
And I'm sure that's going to happen. Okay, it already has in certain aspects, but the reality is automation is here in ways that can be very beneficial to your bottom line, especially on a combine. And that seems to me to be that really first step.
So I was seeing a demonstration. There was an advertisement for RowSense, and I think that would be something that's going to help out this down corn this year, especially for those guys that have that technology or can add that real quickly. That's going to be a big help, I have a feeling.
Well, I think anything you can do on the front end of your header equipment, in down corn or not, I think it's overlooked. You go pull any grain loss studies at harvest, and the majority of your grain loss comes from the header on your combine. So if you can get that header to work more efficiently up front, it's gonna put money in your pocket, whether that's using some type of RowSense or other types of equipment up front, end rollers, different attachments as far as reels go, and ear savers, and all kinds of fun stuff you can do up there. It absolutely puts money right back in your wallet. That's really what matters, especially in these times in ag right now.
So, Chad, it's kind of interesting. I'm sitting here thinking and taking notes that you said that only 3 people in the room bought the technology to advance. I think of iPhones, and I think of smartphones all around, and then I think of Facebook and social media. I don't know that iPhones and smartphones, or the need for a smartphone and internet on your phone, would have been pushed as fast as they did if not for social media and people getting hooked on social media and then wanting it constantly. Is there any influencer like that in ag that's helping push for autonomy?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, I'm on my 14th iPhone. I kept my very first one when they first came out. I'm at the higher level of geek status, okay? But when it comes to looking at where you start in automation, what's the pathway on the farm? I think the pathway, honestly, is coming through a combine inadvertently. I think most guys are pretty familiar with the technology around their corn planter, but there's not a lot of full automation there. Yes, there's some downforce controls, and there's some things there that are very beneficial. But when it comes to taking over and trusting it with someone else, when Case IH came out with their automated system, I got to run a prototype. It had been in the fall of, to get my math right, in the fall of 18. And they let me run. I was cutting soybeans, and they had a 35-foot platform, and I think it was a 7250. And I got in the combine. I set the combine the way I wanted it, and took off through the field. And the fellow who was with me in the combine said, okay, turn the automation on. So I turned the automation on, and I looked at the sample. It looked great. And I don't want to say I was skeptical, but I was. And we turned the corner, we started unloading them to go, doing it's all the automations on. I'm watching it. I said, all right, I've had enough of this. And he goes, what? I said, let's see how good this automation is. So I turned the automation off, and I jacked with the settings of the combine soybeans. And they were a little on the wet side. They were just maybe 1% wetter than what we really liked. They were a little tougher cutting. So I just manipulated the controls. I made the sample, and you guys will love this. I made the sample in the grain tank look terrible, full of pods. It wasn't getting them out of the beans out of the pods. The sample looked awful. I took the combine on the hydrostat to 100% performance. So maxing out the combine, and the sample's garbage. And I turned on the automation. And in about, I would say 300 yards,
wow,
my sample was absolutely perfect.
And
wow. I went, wow, okay, that's impressive.
No kidding.
And so I think when it comes to what this path to autonomy is, when we're having this conversation 5 years from now, I think we're going to look back on and go, remember when our combines first came out with that? Because that was what got guys going, wow, that's pretty neat. And guys, this with technology. You fellas live this space. Titan's got LSW tires, which are amazing technology in tires. Okay, low sidewall, eliminates power hop and road lope, all this cool fun stuff. And recently, in the last handful of months now, you can buy it from the factory from John Deere.
Right.
You can get it from Case, you can get it from New Holland, you can get it on all kinds of stuff. Guys, do you know when the first LSWs came out? This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like an idiot, but I feel like it's only been, 18, 24 months.
Yeah, no, it's been like 6 years. And I think that's the space that we operate in.
Right.
Autonomy on combines is not going to be a hot thing for another 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
First of all, you got to get more of them out there, but you got to get people from the mindset like me. I'm as guilty as anybody else. Okay, I'm going to reach over, I'm going to push this button, and I'm going to trust my harvest to this computer over here. What about my dad and my grandpa, his grandpa? They didn't trust a computer to do nothing but add up a few things at the kitchen table when they were, balancing their checkbook.
Yeah.
So I think, it's a long answer to your question, but I really think that autonomy is going to start through that combine space. I think that's what it looks like to me right now.
No, that was a great answer though. So we'll take the long answer over a bad one anytime. So you mentioned the LSWs, and I did see the picture of those on Big Bud before it makes its trek back to Montana. So I'm sure that was a pretty cool sight. But something else that I've been hearing about that, in the realm of big is SpaceX. What can you tell our listeners about the latest
oh my gosh
through SpaceX?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. We're going to need another show or have an extension on this one. So I've been very blessed. I was a couple years ago got to go down to NASA as a guest at NASA and their social media team and kind of get an inside look. On my website, if you go to field trips, there's a post you can go there, and there's a photo album from that experience. And I think when you start really getting your head around all the things that SpaceX has done to meet the demands that were put on them by our government, essentially commercializing space, and realizing what they've been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time is, guys, it's truly hard to fathom. I mean, they launched, a couple rockets here recently. Of course, we're getting ready to resume full man flight. The demo flights worked fine. It's just, I'm a space shuttle guy. I was at my grandma's in 1981 on spring break. Was waiting for the shuttle to land. I can remember like it was yesterday, and I'm sitting here talking to you guys on my smartphone. It has more physical capabilities than those 7 computers in the space shuttle, and I'm holding it in my hand today. Yep. And what does that mean for us in agriculture, and what does SpaceX mean? Do you guys know when I was at the Kennedy Space Center and I was they've got a lab where they are doing food experiments. Do you know what the single number one challenge is when we start even talking about Mars? You guys know what it is? It's not what you think. It's not fuel. It's not rockets. It's not water supply. It's none of that. It's food. I
was going to say the water.
Yeah, no, they know how to get water. They can do that. It's food because they can't take it with them. They have to be able to sustain food in zero gravity. And at the Kennedy Space Center, they actually have vacuums where they're growing food in a vacuum environment. It was absolutely fascinating. And they're doing it. If you go snoop around on my website, you can find the field trip photos from that, and you'll see pictures of that from inside the veggie lab, they call it. And it's interesting. I mean, I'll be 50 years old next year, and I'll tell you what, I am so glad that there's been this resurgence in our space program, because, for the balance of my life, I'm going to witness a lot of amazing things with space, and they're absolutely going to help all facets of our lives, including agriculture. And
that's how we came up with Tang and Velcro. I mean, two of the best things ever. So yeah, what's next? But so have you ever read a book called Future's Coming Faster Than You Think?
No, I have not.
So you should. All listeners should, if you like tech. It talks a lot about Uber and talks about Uber flights and where they're going with flights, just like SpaceX. And there are already trials going to have flying vehicles, Uber flying vehicles that have a licensed pilot that transfer you from, LA to San Diego, wherever, very quickly. And you don't have to be the licensed pilot. You just Uber rideshare, but it's rideshare pilot style in a flying vehicle, which I think is pretty sweet. And I didn't realize some of the stuff. They talk about blockchain in there and how blockchain can affect, title and ownership of everything from deeds of land to contracts to whatever. But so read that book. That's my statement. Now I'll ask you a question here, and that is the personal device technology that's out there, iPhones, tablets, wearable technology. What's the biggest thing you've seen, and then down to the smallest?
Well, I think right now, especially when we're talking to the ag industry, without question, the biggest challenge is, I would challenge your listeners today that if they looked at the device that they got in their pocket, that it is 3 years old. And one of the biggest challenges in ag, and I have it with some of my closest friends, is what happens. They got an iPhone 8, it still works. They get a new phone for their daughter, their wife, their son, their parents, and the principal of the farm has got a 4-year-old phone. And I think when you start talking about the power of a new iPad Pro or a new iPhone 11, and hey guys, it's September, so the next gen is here, and within the next month, it'll probably be our next conversation. We'll be talking about the new iPhone 12, and amen, because I can't wait. I think we find with our smart devices, we're a little immune in ag because it's just not the first thing you go upgrade. And I struggle. I'll be honest with you guys. You know me. I struggle with that greatly. All the things we do with our phone now, as far as banking and management of your operations and all the things, you got a 4-year-old phone. And the new ones, it's not like going and buying a new battery for your car. There's not a lot of excitement in buying a new battery for your car because you put it in and your car starts or your truck starts. But the reality is, you go upgrade from an iPhone 8 to an iPhone 11 Pro, it is a monster step in technology. And I think when it comes to smartphones, that's the thing that frustrates me the most, is that little thing of not staying current with that technology. A lot of farmers I know go spend $300,000 on a combine, but have a 4-year-old phone. Please, somebody help me with that.
It's definitely one of those things to where even in the office or when I'm out helping my in-laws or my family, I don't feel like I can go anywhere without my AirPods, my Apple Watch, or my iPhone. And I'm Apple biased, but I think there's that level of technology just makes my ability to function a heck of a lot easier in those what am I trying to think here? Like a multitasking environment to be able to allow me to do that.
Unless you're driving down the road and want to get pulled over by a police officer, then talking on the phone is not a good thing. But even COVID has pushed that forward, even with like our podcast here. We hadn't done, not TeamViewer, but
Zoom
meetings with people, to where now we set it up in our office here in our studio that shows Zoom meeting with a TV. You can see all of us and we can talk and record. We weren't forced into it. So just like the iPhone 8, you don't know what you don't know until you go look.
Right. And that's kind of one of those things, Chad. I'm going to ask you then. So you've got to network with a lot of people, both inside and outside of agriculture. As it relates to the technology field, what would you say the most successful people that you work with have in common when it comes to dealing with technology?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. It's basically, I think the people that are on the edge, if you want to call that, they make a conscious effort to try to keep up with it. And I think that's all any of us can do, regardless of your industry. I found it very ironic, and you guys will appreciate this. In my first forte in drones started now 10 years ago. I've been in the drone space for 10 years, which is unheard of, right? Some of the guys call me the quad father, which that's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I was the first guy doing it. And I cannot tell you, and part of it might be due to COVID. Okay, I'll go with that. And part of it might be the derecho. But in the last 2 months, 3 months, more farmers I know have contacted me about, all right, what drone should I get? What drone should, why? Because a drone's not a thing anymore.
Right.
You can take it out of the box, hook your smartphone to it or use your tablet and be airborne in less than a minute, fly around, take some pictures, put it back in the box. It's not an event. It's not like putting a puzzle together at your grandma's house. That's not what this is. This is another tool in the toolbox. And I think things like drones and higher performing tablets and smartphones, the people that are successful are going to find ways to use technology to improve their time and make their time more valuable. And that to me is what technology does for you. It makes you more efficient. It makes you, that to me is the difference. And I think for some people, though, that's a big jump, right? Because you're putting that trust in technology. But again, it does things that you just can't do otherwise. And that's where technology is great.
Well, and you learn to do that. I think now anytime we go on vacation, everybody's like, do you have a plan of where you're going? No. When I get in the truck, I'll type it in my GPS. And eventually everybody now in society has started to trust Google Maps, etc. But, hey, I tell you what, Chad, thanks for coming here. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to learn more than we've already gone over for our conversation today?
Well, I think one thing's for sure. I think if you haven't checked out the virtual Farm Progress show, please do that. I think it's going to give you a different look into equipment. And the other thing is, keep a great attitude. I think this fall is going to be a challenge for a lot of us. And, keep your head up. I know a lot of conversation about mental health and agriculture. And I think this fall is going to be challenging for a lot of us, myself included, just because there's be a lot of pressure on getting this crop in and out of the field. And we got to keep that in mind too in this busy harvest season, that we remind everybody to be really safe. And if you ever need any help with anything, don't hesitate to ask. This program's a great one. Reach out to me or you guys. There's a lot of us out there willing to help each other, and I think that's paramount in times like these. Well,
that's great. Hey, I appreciate your time, Chad, and appreciate Tractor Zoom, what's working in ag. Tanner, you want to summarize for us kind of what we talked about today?
Yeah, it kind of all seems like it comes down to just staying on top of things, keeping yourself informed of what's advancing. So I'll have the links in the show notes. That way you guys can look at the Virtual Farm Progress show. If you haven't already had that experience, you should go out there and check that out to see what Chad had filmed and all the cool new angles of the latest technology that's out there. Everything from the X9 combine to the latest combines and everything, the headers that have the integrated stock stompers. It comes down to where can we go and how fast can we get there? You think about SpaceX and taking us outside of this world. You think about high-speed internet and trying to make our local communities faster. Technology is going to be here before you know it. What do you think, Dave, is a good challenge for these guys?
Well, I would say exactly what Chad did. Think outside the box. And if you think your 8's good enough, you don't even know what you don't know. Upgrade, jump, take the leap of faith, and because the future is coming faster than we think.
Speaking of the future, listener, farm4profit@gmail.com or find us anywhere on social media. Chad, before he leaves us, he's at the Chad Colby, or you can find him at colbyaagtech.com. But what we want to need from you is, since the future's coming quicker, is what do you want to see for the Farm for Profit conference this year? Is this still something to where you'd like for us to socially distance and meet in person? Do you want to see a virtual event, kind of like the Farm Progress show? Let us know what you're thinking. And lastly, thanks again to Kyle from Tractor Zoom and Iron Comps, a little insight to the future of technology there during our What's Working in Ag segment. Kind of really cool to segue that into our conversation with Chad.
You bet. Remember to like, rate, review, share, build this audience, make it go viral, guys. Share it with, even if you think that all your friends already know, I bet they don't. Make sure you share this out there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Chad, for joining us. And listener, until next time, we hope you have a good one.
Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long.